I still remember the excitement bubbling inside me as I stepped off the plane, my suitcase rolling behind me. Cutting my business trip short had been a last-minute decision. I had spent weeks planning this project, but as the days dragged on, I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to be home. It wasn't just about missing my wife, but a gnawing sense that something was off. Our marriage had always been strong, or so I thought. We had our routines, dinners at the table, weekends with our child at the park, the occasional date night when life allowed it. But lately, things had shifted. She'd become distant, more secretive. Her phone, once casually left around the house, was now always by her side. Late nights became more frequent, her explanations vague. I chalked it up to stress. After all, who wasn't stretched thin these days? Still, the unease lingered. And then, there was my sister. She'd been staying over more often, helping out while I traveled. We were close growing up, and I trusted her implicitly. But now as I think back, even her behavior seemed different. Little things I hadn't pieced together at the time started to form a darker picture. It was late when I arrived home. The house stood in darkness, eerily quiet. Normally my wife would wait up for me, even if it meant falling asleep on the couch. Tonight, there was no sign of her. I unlocked the door as quietly as I could, imagining the smile on her face when she saw me. But something felt wrong. I set my suitcase down and made my way upstairs. Halfway up I heard it. Muffled sounds, faint but unmistakable. I froze, straining to make sense of it. Was she watching TV in the bedroom? My steps were slow and deliberate as I climbed the remaining stairs, my heart pounding harder with each one. When I reached the bedroom door, I paused. The muffled sounds were clearer now, soft whispers and laughter that weren't meant for me. My hand trembled as I pushed the door open. The scene before me is burned into my memory. My wife and my sister were there, tangled together in an intimacy that shattered everything I believed in. They froze, their expressions shifting from surprise to panic as they scrambled to cover themselves. I couldn't move. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the betrayal unfolding before my eyes. What the hell is going on? My voice was hoarse, shaking with a mixture of rage and heartbreak. They didn't answer immediately. My wife stammered, trying to explain, but the words felt hollow, meaningless. My sister sat there, silent tears streaming down her face. "How long?" I demanded. My wife hesitated before answering, her voice barely above a whisper. "A few months. It's not what you think." "Not what I think? Are you serious right now?" My anger boiled over, the pain in my chest almost unbearable. "You've been sneaking around behind my back with my sister?" My sister finally spoke, her voice choked with emotion. "I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. It's my fault." I shook my head, unable to process their words. The people I trusted most had torn my world apart, and all they could offer were weak excuses. "You've both betrayed me in ways I can't even begin to describe. Do you have any idea what you've done?" The days that followed were a blur. I moved into the guest room, unable to face either of them. The silence in the house was suffocating, broken only by the occasional attempt at conversation. My sister left the next morning, leaving a tear-stained note apologizing for everything. My wife tried to talk to me, but I couldn't bring myself to listen. Every time I looked at her, the image of that night came rushing back. How could I ever trust her again? I confided in a close friend, someone who'd known us both for years. He listened patiently, offering advice without judgment. "You have to decide what's best for you and your child," he said. "Forgiveness is possible, but only if you believe it's worth it." Weeks later, after countless sleepless nights and endless internal debates, I finally sat down with my wife. She begged for forgiveness, tears streaming down her face. She admitted to feeling neglected during my frequent trips, though she insisted it was no excuse for her actions. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix this," she said. We agreed to attend counseling, both individually and as a couple. She promised complete transparency. No more secrets, no more lies. My sister reached out too, asking for a chance to make amends. It wasn't easy, but I told her we needed time and distance before we could even begin to heal. Rebuilding trust is like piecing together a shattered vase. Even when it's whole again, the cracks remain. I decided to stay, not out of weakness, but because I believed in the possibility of redemption. For the sake of our child and the life we'd built, I was willing to try. But I set clear boundaries and made it known that another betrayal would end everything. My wife's efforts to rebuild our relationship were genuine. She attended every counseling session, showed me her phone whenever I asked, and made an effort to reconnect with me and our child. It was far from perfect, but it was a start.